Fight back. Fight back.
Ladies and gentlemen, stormtroopers all around, welcome in to this edition of the post game for week 3 of the Storm Surge BP. You and I are both particularly shocked. The Orlando Storm come away with the overtime win on a technicality. Sure, Futurama would have you believe that technically correct is the best kind of correct, but I don't know if I feel that way. But nonetheless, 3-0 are the Orlando Storm and 0-3 are the Louisville Kings. BP, what do you got, man?
That's all I've got to say. That's all I've got to say. So I managed to watch the broadcast just long enough before shutting it off to come on live with you. So Dean Blandino, the excellent explainer that he is, which he is, absolutely. Yes, you know, where we needed this explanation for sure, because I was like, what are we doing here?
What just happened?
Yeah, one more time, Peanut. Right. So anyway, the rule is in the UFL, and this is new to me because I hadn't heard this rule change yet. So now that they've gone to the overtime shootout, they go that best, 3, and after that it's sudden death. So what they said is that Louisville had already committed a live ball foul during the overtime period. It's the whole of overtime. It isn't like college where they reset the series. So the whole overtime period, and they committed their second foul.
Right.
And at that point, it's like the basketball player who fouls on purpose to keep the guy from scoring or to stop the clock. So by rule, that means the second live ball foul committed by the defense results in a converted try, and that counts. And in this case, since it was sudden death and Louisville failed to score, the ball game is over. And I'm sure Louisville fans, we're going to break this game down, and I'm going to have a time with the BP breakdown on this weekend. I'm not really sure where I want to go with it yet, but the Louisville faithful should not hang their heads.
This is a good football team, BP.
This is a really, really, I mean, the real Jason Bean finally showed up in this game, and the Orlando defense once again had a couple of critical stops. Talk about Tavante Beckett for a minute.
Yes.
We're going to get into that too, but my goodness, did Louisville put on a show in the second. It was a different team, a totally different team, a totally different half for the Kings. So I wouldn't hang your head on this one. I also tend to agree with one or two of the officiating calls. There was some question marks. Now, KJ Hamler's was a catch. And the explanation we got was good because there was not enough evidence. Yeah, you could see the ball move, but they didn't have another angle to see that other side. So, and we were seeing it right here. I mean, talk about the chunk play finally showing up for Orlando. They really needed that. And that was a beautifully thrown ball from Plummer to Hamler. He corrals it. You see it move, but you don't really see if it bounces off the turf or off his arm. They don't have the other angle at that point. There's no way for replay to really confirm that. So they went with the call on the field. And Blandino had already reviewed it. So that's the other thing about the UFL. They got that express review, just like in the NFL. So they reviewed that immediately, kind of anticipating it. It's a scoring play, so it's got to be reviewed. So they already ran through it, and Redmond challenges it anyway at the imploring of Adam Savoy, who's trying to tell him, don't do this. You're going to get it overturned.
Bro, listen, he looked at it. I promise you, you can challenge, coach, but I wouldn't do it.
Yeah.
And I'm get it one more time. You can challenge, coach, but I wouldn't do it. Okay, challenge. Yep.
Yeah. What is it that they used to say in the Looney Tunes cards? If I do it, I get a whipping. Whap. I do it. So, and he did it, and that was it. That stunk. So, nonetheless, it's one or two of the officiating calls. How about the corner official on that Benny Snell catch? Boy, would I like to see another look at that one, because that's a large gentleman, And I'm
Yes.
pretty sure his foot was right on the line. It was, eyes up for that official in the back corner there to see that. And then two of them came over and waved it off. So, but, man, to have a game like this end on a technicality, and this by far in week 3, best game of the season, most entertaining game we've seen so far in the UFL. So this is proof that once these guys get cracking, you really start seeing what they're made of. And I hope this kind of gets the league to talking about maybe extending training camp a little bit, get these guys some reps early, because it looks a lot like college ball. The first 2 games you play the cupcakes. Well, they don't get the cupcakes to warm up with now. They got to go right slinging into, seasoned athletes here. So, I liked what I saw out of Louisville in that second half. I don't think they should hang their hat on this one. All credit to them. But the ruling is, they get that second foul. It ends the game, and that's a player safety issue. They don't want this to continue all night long, because invariably we could have had it all night long. And what did you say to me earlier? Jay-Sean Corbett, I wanted him to run on the 1-yard line and finish it the way that smack him in the mouth, punch him in the face. You got this one. And doggone it, if he makes that block, dude, the game's over. And they don't win on a technicality. They win on a man-on-man 2-point conversion play.
Yeah, on that one, the safety snuck in. It looked to me like the middle of the offensive line just didn't get outside, or rather downfield into the second level enough to stop the safety who shot in. And listen, both these defenses are good. I don't want to just be like, oh, the O-line blew it, because that's where I live. And listen, I know a couple of those guys. Shouts to Cole Snyder and Sam Jackson. But, I want to listen. They're there to win the game too, right? And with that very same thing in mind, shouts to Jason Beam. I know it's
what a night.
Yeah, 352 yards is nothing to sneeze at, and considering how his night opened, constantly being, shall we say, battered in the backfield. We mentioned him needing to get taped up thanks to hits from Keyshawn Banks. To see what he did in this group do with it, I really think BP. Now, granted, this isn't me cheapening it, but I'm going to give credit to the Kings in understanding. Listen, we're the bigger bodies. Maybe 8 quarters of play trying to beat us down isn't the best move for the Storm, and it clearly looked to me like they were taking advantage of that.
They certainly did. And, I just got to give credit where credit's due. Louisville did a fantastic job tonight, and they played on a couple of Orlando's weaknesses. But once again, how about the defense for the Orlando Storm? Stepping up when they need to. I'm sure Anthony Beck is going to have to go see his cardiologist after all this is said and done. He's going to have to take a pep pill now, because his defense is giving him nightmares and everything else. They really should not have put on 27 points to be fair. But, again, Jason Bean, he all of a sudden flipped a switch, and he was a different quarterback in that second half. But, I want to talk about the play of Josh Minkins, Tavante Beckett.
Mm-hmm.
Both of those guys making good plays in the secondary, some tremendous pass breakups in critical situations. So, the defense really did bow up a little more, but you can't let a mobile quarterback like that, just start running free and then, start making the reads that he was making. They did clamp down on the run game, though. You notice that Benny Snell was not as effective later in the game. They started getting that deep penetration in the backfield, wrapping him up like you're supposed to, 2-3 guys gang tackling, running to the ball. So a lot of that was better in the second half. But, the secondary, although they did make the plays that they needed to in those clutch situations, I think you get out of those clutch situations by making some better reads and, being a little bit more hawkish on the ball. But like we said, it's week 3, first road game, second time you've seen these guys. I'm sure they are glad that's over with.
Yeah.
Now you get to move on to a new opponent with new tendencies, and hopefully they grow from it. But, again, best UFL game I've seen this season, and possibly the best game I've seen in the last season or two. In terms of its entertainment value, went right down to the wire, got everything out of it.
But a big part of it, and I think there's an element of this, those may argue or not understand, my gosh, how did the Orlando Storm manage 29 points? Really should have been a 30, arguably. because of the kick early. But I don't want this to be Michael Lance could have ended it. Listen, by that point, defense failed at times, and the offense didn't get it in the end zone more, right? We talked about that, or specifically, I talked about that with you and Jeff Sharon back on late Thursday, early Friday. But part of the reason they got to those 29 points, I have to show this off of what is literally my favorite Orlando Storm play call of
this was butter. This was butter. Look at that. Corbin in the open field. Plummer just waits until the absolute last minute to throw that ball. Look at this. He's got a man in his face.
I'm going to pause it here. At this point, I was yelling at the TV, who let him through? And then all of a sudden, Jack goes, psych.
Yeah, and Corbin's waiting right there. Look at the convoy of blockers. He had 3 big boys with nobody to hit. They were ready to absolutely chop some wood, and there was nobody there. Here it is again. Just look, Corbin makes the catch right there. And look, 3 guys right out in front. Nobody home.
And who's that 6'7" down the field? My gosh. These are all these big dudes. I don't mean to cut you off, PP, but Larson getting down the field excites the bejesus out of me.
But it was a smooth as silk play. It was well called and well executed. So it's not all doom and gloom for the Storm, despite the technicality on the win and the almost loss there. There were some bright spots in this Storm offense. The touchdown drives that they scored on were some of the best that we've seen. Jake Plummer, everybody, even Kurt Menefee called him Jake tonight. Jack Plummer.
Jack Plummer, yes.
Everybody does it because we all want to say Jake the Snake. But I don't know. He did snake his way out of 1 or 2 on that run on the RPO there. But, Jack Plummer, when he was on tonight and he had time to throw, they got chunk plays.
Right.
And we talked about that this week. They needed to get some explosives. They needed to establish the run. They didn't quite do it as well. They did later in the game. Again, it's always kind of a slow roll with these guys running the ball. But they found the chunk plays. They found the KJ Hamlers over the top. Chris Rowland again making another impact. It's fantastic watching this guy go. He's got to be the shortest guy on the receiving core. But, man, can he move. And, man, is he clutch doing some of the big things that he's done this season. Noticeably quiet was Elijah Badger. We didn't see or hear a lot of him tonight, but he was still a presence. I think if he slows up on that one pass, Plummer kind of threw it a little awkwardly, but I think if Badger doesn't lose it in the lights or slows up just a little bit and turns around, then he ends up on the stat sheet with another chunk play. So we're starting to see it. It's coming together little by little. And now that you've got this back-to-back under your belt, now you got to go do another one. Right. Yeah. You're going to have to get ready for another one down the line. And you're not playing a slouch team in Birmingham. These guys know what they're doing. They're ready to work. It's another road game, but I overall, again, I would score this game a B+ for the Orlando Storm. They still haven't made an A with me yet, but I like the plus in this B+. There was more to it this week. The layers of the onion got pulled back. We saw Plummer uncork. And, and once again, the defense playing lights out when they need to, just need that little bit more to make it more complete. I don't know.
Complementary football is there, BP. I think that's the biggest point that you're kind of coming up with. Like, clearly last week, both sides were relying heavily on their defense to do the thing. And I mean, what was it last week? 19 to 9. 19 to 9. Yeah, we saw that in the score, right? But, and again, I know this is a Storm themed podcast, but who am I to talk trash on the Kings coming out in the second half and putting up 21 to make this Humpy Bumpy an overtime contest? And this is one of those things. I'm this guy, BP, okay? I like ties in games like this because I truly feel like neither team really deserved to lose, right? Winning a football game is difficult. It's something you have to earn, so you can't just walk away with a dub. That's the upside if like 2 lousy teams are playing each other and they get a draw. But these are 2 good teams that laid it all out. I don't think either team really deserved to lose this game, but someone had to go home and do it on a technicality. And again, I know it helps the Storm. I'm going to be very happy when they're 3-0 and they're en route to make a semifinal game, hopefully over at Inter & Co. So we at the Storm Surge can be in effect and in the house for all that when it happens, if it goes that way. But golly, feels a little dirty that that's the way it went.
No, it's absolutely. I feel gross. I'm gonna have to go take a shower after this now.
Yeah.
I mean, you and I watched a lot of football, man.
Yeah.
You've played more football than I ever have. The best I did was flag.
Let
But
me show my
still,
credentials there.
yeah, but still, I mean, I have been around some wild junk. I mean, I left the choke at Doak in 94, which was a stupid mistake that I've never made again. And even in Florida State's worst seasons, I've watched a game to its finish because you never know what's going to happen in a football game. So I've seen the choke at Doak. I was there for the wide rights. I've seen, the Kansas City Chiefs do unreal things and late game heroics and Mahomesian flips and stuff like that. But never have I ever put this on the bingo card, kids. Never have I ever had a game literally end on a penalty. That by every rule in football, the game does not end on a defensive penalty. And we just witnessed that. Now, granted, it was an overtime, so there's a little bit of leeway there. But I'm looking at the phone. You're texting me like, see you in the studio. And I'm like, what the hell just happened? Like they literally are going to call this game on a penalty and award points for, but
I got Big Buddy in the comments here, Big Buddy 36, which by the way, thanks for jumping in, guys. He's a Renegades fan, but he says, and I'm just sick. That greatest game in UFL history ends that way. Bro, you're hitting it on the head, man. We don't love it either.
No.
It'll help us cover more cool stuff, but I think the term is anticlimactic.
Oh, God. Anticlimactic. Shoot, she rolled over and went to bed. I went there. I mean, that's how disappointing this is, Gotta hit the buzzer, man. For the life of me, I've never seen that. And Big Bubby's right. That was quite possibly one of the greatest games in UFL history. And, Dallas is going to get their shot at Orlando. And that, I hope, is a classic. Shout out to the Renegades fans. They're on fire. They're on fire right now. We'll see what they do this weekend.
Yeah, jump in with us there, Bubby. We'll talk about it, man. We want to hear from you. But
yeah, absolutely. But yeah, no, I'm happy. What is it that the term that we always used on the mat when I was training full-time in martial arts? Happy, but not satisfied. I'm happy that the Storm won this game. I'm happy that damn it, I did it again. Jack Plummer. I know. I should buy the guy a steak at this rate.
In truth, it's the orange, which looks really good, by the way.
It is the orange. No, well, I'll talk about the aesthetic in a minute here because I was very impressed with the road uniforms. But Jack Plummer he's becoming the quarterback that we all need and want him to be. We're still going to have the DTR Glazers on that one. Fine, whatever. Do what you're going to do.
DTR doesn't win this game. I'm just going to say it for you.
I don't think. Save me the trouble because DTR didn't win this game. I'm sorry. You can hate on it all you want, but I don't think DTR wins this game. Yes, and I agree, Big Bubby. Dallas and Orlando would definitely be a great game. I am for sure looking forward to that one just as much as I'm looking forward to seeing DC and Orlando as well. The defending champs, but. DTR didn't win this game. I already saw some of the commentary and social media on the Storm's Instagram page about, DTR hurdles and scores. How do you know that? How the hell do you know that? What sort of crystal ball are you rubbing, my friend, to be able to see that clairvoyantly that DTR is going to score a touchdown doing another? Shut up. Just shut up.
There's nothing extra DTR would bring against the Louisville Kings front.
There's not. He would be in just as much trouble as Jason Bean was with our defense. Stamp it. I said it. That was a hell of a game between two good football teams. It's a shame that Louisville's 0-3. But they just clicked finally. It made sense to them. And I hope the rest of their season goes well. Now that we've played them twice, okay, good. We're done with that. I don't want to see you guys again if I don't have to. Because the third time, listen, if we ended up playing Louisville in a semifinal game, Louisville will probably beat us at that point because they have now got us figured out. And they've seen what they need to see, and they have come alive. And for the rest of their season, God rest ye merry gentlemen. I hope you win the next 7 ball games. But you
It
just
would be
don't.
fair to see them in the postseason. I mean,
Yeah.
granted, at this point, though, I know there's another team out there that's 0-3. I feel like none of them are like. I haven't seen a team that's just outright awful yet.
No. See, that's the other thing. Across the board, the quality of play has come up a lot in the UFL. I don't really care about having names right now because guys will make names for themselves. I mean, look at all the household names we've been spouting just in the last 3 weeks that are now Orlando household names. I'm psyched up when I see these guys. I mean, this was the first game that I was actually able to sit and not critique from the perspective of a commentator. I was actually able to sit at home on my couch and watch this like a fan. And there were a couple of instances where I jumped up like a fan and said, "That's my dog right there. That's what I'm talking about."
Keyshawn!
Keyshawn. I was ready to do those things. And I was ready to watch Lance drill a game-winning field goal, jump up and go, "That's what I'm talking about right there." So everything about this game was what we wanted it. I'm almost upset that this was a road game, to be honest, because could you imagine the Wall going crazy after the end of this one? Maybe not with the lack of photo finish here, but with the referees getting their time in to win a game. But call it what it is that them's the rules, and we would otherwise be here till 3:00 in the morning. So I like that part of it, but just I strap in, Orlando. This is going to be a fun into the first half of the season before we come home to play St. Louis. We've got a really stout Birmingham team on the horizon that I'm going to be watching this weekend to see, what we're up against, Kyle. But man, I tell you what, one thing. Here we go. We got a question. Hey, we have interaction here. So love to hear your thoughts on being 3-0. What's the biggest thing Orlando needs to clean up, and what are you most excited about that's working? That's an excellent question, Big Bubby. I love it. Kyle, weigh into this one for sure, but I really think that line play's got to get cleaned up some more. There were a couple of instances where, and we talked about it over text message too, the couple of bonehead moments that stalled drives.
Penalties for sure. That you're right about penalties. Like this is again me texting with BP, but there was one drive in particular, right? First they give up the false start, then they give up the sack. And I'm not gonna name names this time around yet, but I will say that the left side, there was a disengagement picking up the stunt block. That was an issue. And then oh crud, what was the third thing? It was the
they got the false start that was not a fault, that was a false start. He thought he was offsides because he did not cross the neutral zone. That drove
he
me
didn't
nuts.
cross the net neutral zone. So yeah, that was not a false start.
Gonzalez disengaging, you said, that was one of them. Gonzalez disengaged.
That's the second one.
Yeah,
right?
that's that one. That's two.
It's forgetting they crossed. Forgetting they
crossed the 50. Oh my God. Yeah, even the Kurt Menefee was confused about that at first, and I like Kurt Menefee as a broadcaster anyway. Kudos to him. What a great voice on Fox doing UFL play-by-play.
You'll appreciate this. I talked to him when your Chiefs won the Super Bowl in Phoenix, but I digress. Go ahead.
Yeah, but well, he's a guy on my list to meet, as is Gus Johnson. But anyway, but even the announcers were confused by that at first when they said, "Oh, they did cross the 50." So, because instead of the third and long play, they conceded and went to run the ball like they were going to punt,
thinking they could punt because they had done that earlier in the game successfully. We talked about that in the halftime report.
Yeah, so game awareness all of a sudden got lost, which is uncharacteristic for this team. So far they've been pretty locked down and not making those silly rules mistakes. They've been kind of locked into it. This time around, no, that was not a great look. So yeah, I mean, bonehead plays like that on the line. They've got to fix some of the line play. I mean, again, credit to Louisville. They made adjustments. They expected Plummer to roll out of the pocket and be less effective than he was inside. And it was the opposite tonight. He was actually more effective outside, couple of zone reads, where he ran out a couple of times, some gutsy runs. He's not the most athletic guy, but he was effective. And that's the thing. But they decided to force contain. And when they put the offensive line on their heels at that point, there was nothing that he could do to make a play. And that's when Louisville started making the difference on defense. So you got to clean up that a little bit.
I'm gonna institute this, and nothing. This is nothing in me necessarily disagreeing with your breakdown there, but I think this is a scheme thing, right? And the other element is these are 8 quarters that these dudes have been battling each other. I can only imagine out battling dudes of size like this that are that much bigger than you is tiring. Okay, you know, and say this is not a criticism of any of the O linemen. Heck, I love how Cole Schneider is able to get upfield and do a lot of things from the center position and move around and have excellent feet. But when you got dudes like Bell in the middle, my God, okay, it just runs on you for a while. And the fact that the line, the running game was shut down the way it was, I really think they were back to daring Jack to beat them again. And y'all got to stop doing that because it's not working for you, you know?
Yeah, no, they did. And it played out the way, you know, they wanted it to. So again, kudos to Louisville for really coming around in this game and making a statement. You know, the fight in them is there. And, you know, I wouldn't be surprised if they rip off a couple of wins because of this. You know, I hope that this strange and unusual finish actually catapults them to a lot more success. And they're going to be a team to be reckoned with down the line. But if you want to talk about what I'm excited about for Orlando right now, hand over fist, it's KJ Hamler. Yep. I mean, this guy, I don't know if you heard it on the broadcast or anybody else did, but this guy said he had 2 deaths in the family in the span of like a week. And he went out and he played ball. And you know the guy's got his heart on his sleeve at this point. And he absolutely came unglued tonight. Again, you know, this is 2 consecutive games that KJ Hamler has had a play of 40-plus yards. And they've always been major plays, game-changing plays. I mean, them to, you know, score on that one from sliding into the end zone, taking the lead, that was massive.
So wild. Yeah.
You know, it is. So I like the Plummer-Hamler connection. I think that's going to continue to grow. You know, I of course, you know, Chris Rowland and Elijah Badger doing what they're doing is also good. But I really think there are some weapons there. They, you know, get the ball to your guys in space. And, you know, but Hamler has been head and shoulders above the other guys, not to diminish anything that Badger or Rowland has done this season, but Hamler has really stood out to me as Mr. Consistency. So I think that's something that's going to, you know, continue to flourish, you know, on down the line. But
and let's give the coaching staff some credit. I think there's an element of Badger missing air quotes in this game because of some effort by Louisville to take him away in this game, being like, yo, this guy might be a problem. And we literally just played him 5 days ago. So maybe we want to try to do something. That's my biggest frustration, by the way, with Orlando's defense. Lucky Jackson was called out in the preview.
Oh, yeah.
So the previous damn game, how is he getting open this often? But I think this was a lot of that bend, don't break element, right? The reason why there's bend, don't break is they're relying a lot on zone coverage. It makes me wonder if they were concerned that they could hang one-on-one in a coverage scenario with Louisville's receivers. But nonetheless, that's what I'm most excited about with this, what I was most impressed about. I do want to see the defense try to find a way to be more aggressive, but if you don't have the dogs, in your opinion, I get it. Or if you're that concerned that the other guys are just really explosive, I also get that. We've cited that. We even said it when this team came out with 9 points. They're always one play away from killing you somehow, and then they dropped 21 in the second half, proving is absolutely right. Though, again, I think there's an element of seeing these guys for 6 quarters, the Kings did the Storm defense, I mean, and being like, you know what? We see they do this after 6 quarters. Maybe we should try to do that, and lo and behold, it worked, right?
Right. No, 100% agree. But this is an experience. I'm sure these guys will take this in the bank and apply plenty of that going into Birmingham. Yeah, here we go. Boy, Bubby's setting me up here.
Just to trigger you. I saw Big Bubby in here, and like you had to get involved.
Keep seeing people say put DTR in, love DTR, incredibly athletic, watched him in the NFL and the college, but I personally love Plummer, made some great throws and deserves to keep starting. Oh, well, then I don't need to add any of that because you said everything that I'm going to say without using curse words. You know, I mean, I'm not taking anything away from DTR. You know, even though we got that small sample size, there were some flashes in the pan, but you guys have got to believe in what AB is doing here. The Becht effect is in full effect. There's a reason why Plummer's your starting quarterback and DTR is not, and for everybody that's doing the glizzy glaze over, Dorian Thompson-Robinson, guys, get off the bus and start riding in the Plummobile. You're going to see more Plummer than you'll see DTR. Does DTR have a future somewhere? Yes. And it's on this team. He's going to have to, step up his game. He's going to have to do more, as we get across, and he'll get his chance. I'm not to say, there were a couple of instances where Plummer took some hits and I'm like, oh, here we go.
Yeah.
Having big fat guys on top of our quarterback is not ideal. So we're blessed to have that much depth at quarterback, but everybody get off the bus and stop with this mess. You're not changing it. You're not going to influence Becht's decision by being keyboard warriors here. Get behind Plummer. And I know DTR is behind Plummer. I've seen it on the sidelines. You watch the body language. DTR's involved. He's paying attention to what he's being taught. He's listening in the headsets to the play calls, and he's doing exactly what he needs to do to wait his turn. I mean, think about this for a second. I mean, flip, I'm not taking anything away from either quarterback, but that's heads up. I love what I saw out of that, and that's what we needed to see. And I'm sure that Coach Becht has seen that in the moment and has realized that Plummer has done that more consistently than DTR has in practice. So that's why, and I'll keep saying it until you guys finally listen, because, I have no problems saying it on a mic over and over again. I have a teenager. I'm used to repeating myself. So, By
the way, even when they're pre-teams, you do that ish there, BP.
Yeah, well, trust me, I've got 3 years of experience and then 2 more in high school already. I'm pretty well versed in having to say, now that's not what I said. So, and answering the question why all the time. Anyhow, thanks, Big Bubby. I appreciate you for triggering it. You're getting a mild case of BP tonight because it is late.
Not for nothing, Bubby. Go over here on the Storm Surge YouTube channel and check out BP's breakdown. That was actually the topic of conversation. Yeah. And even though it was before this game happened, the points aren't really straying too much in difference. So maybe you and the other Stormtroopers out there, you're a Renegades fan, but maybe you and the Stormtroopers out there would find yourselves enjoying BP's breakdown for that particular place. But let me take away from triggering you, BP, and let's kind of warm up, because listen, former Birmingham Stallion Cole Schneider is on this team now with the Orlando Storm, and a dude that has enough rings that I'm pretty sure I should ask him if he has a jeweler on retainer at this point. Okay,
that's a good point.
With all that in mind, because between that and the national championship with UCF, all that. Anyways, we're going to do more breakdown. We're going to hear more from Coach, but your initial thoughts on the prospect of facing the Birmingham Stallions in the upcoming game, where we will be live at Fast Eddie's.
Yes. I hope they're ready. AJ McCarron, it's not like he just was off in obscurity and they hired him to be a coach. This guy's got recent playing experience in this league, and now he's a coach, and he relates to the players in a much different way than, some other coaches like a Bob Stoops did, and Stoops, for all the things that he did, I'm glad he stepped away and let somebody else jump in and coach, because he'd done his time, and whatnot. But I'm impressed with the way McCarron is running things in Birmingham, and I wouldn't be surprised if we see some stuff that Orlando has not seen on film, from whatever they can gather strategically. So, and again, Birmingham has a history in the UFL. They have been the team to beat in spring football. They've had that consistent success in the USFL leading up to the UFL. The DC championship notwithstanding. Birmingham is not a team you want to sleep on, and you're playing them in their house. Now, I'm not sure how Birmingham's house is running these days, with some of the changes in the league, but I would expect them, it's a similar scenario. And the Fox broadcast team said this tonight about the crowd noise. Orlando's had the benefit of playing 2 games in front of their home fans. This was the first road game with some hostility. And, again, the credit to the Kings fans, they were very loud towards the end.
Absolutely.
So I imagine the Birmingham fans are going to be just as raucous, no matter how many of them are there, because there is nothing to do in Birmingham.
They have the Senior Bowl, but that's out of season.
Yeah.
Now.
And if you're a UAB fan, God bless you. That's all I gotta say. But and to my buddy Billy Ramsey, the Pharaoh, I'm sure he'll talk some smack with me about it at some point. We may have to borrow him for another Birmingham matchup. But I would put this game down as all right. Don't just think you're going to cruise into this one either. You're gonna have to go back to the drawing board. You're gonna have to clean up things at the offensive line. Again, I'm gonna pound it on the table until it finally comes to fruition. You got to run the damn football. I know I don't make this. I'm criticizing people for making quarterback decisions, and here I am offering unsolicited coaching advice.
You got Plummer. Now run the ball.
Yeah, now run the damn ball. Yeah, you got Plummer's quarterback. Now run the damn ball. But I mean, even some of the like you take Benny Snell for example. When Louisville started running the ball, it really started making a difference. Now they were throwing and they kind of threw to set up run. But, the balance is important. You've got to be balanced and you've got to be able to throw the slow change up, get the defensive secondary to slow down a little bit and open up your passing game. You got enough skill guys that, you can throw underneath and you can make some things happen. But, we saw more chunk plays tonight than we have in the past. And I think you set up even more if you can have some offensive balance, even if it isn't a traditional run out of single back, or, you're running out of split backs or running out of the gun with sidecar to either side. They did it tonight with Jayshon Corbin on that beautiful screen pass, as they say with Bush's baked beans, roll that beautiful bean footage. That's a play that you want to circle and go, yeah, let that be. Yeah, do it. Roll that beautiful bean footage, baby. I mean, look at this. This is an extension of your run game right here, because, again, you've got Jayshon Corbin out in space with blockers in front of him. That's what you need. He's an athlete and he's a stout runner. Take advantage of that situation. Again, the execution on this one is just gorgeous. You could watch this play over and over again on how pretty it was.
I'm sorry, were you talking, BP?
Yes, I was. Kyle is over here trying to find a towel to wipe the drool off his face because, he is an offensive lineman and just saw so much green in front of him. He's like, holy crap.
Right. In truth, the thing that makes that smart, too, is with the struggles you mentioned running the football. And, again, I think that's more about Louisville than it is about the Storm in this, BP. That's a stout group, man, I'm telling you. But with all that being said, finding a way to find that threat by using the screen is what makes that play call so smart. But I want to go this direction here too. I don't mean to play favorites with Big Bubby, but he's got another excellent question for us here. He mentions Roland and Hammer seem to be big 1 and 2 on the receiver core. Who's your third, and who do you think needs to take that step up or help up in a true number 3 option? Love that I found you guys. Thanks, Bubby. But I'm going to bring in this, and BP, you alluded to it earlier. Isaiah Badger, in my opinion, would be the
Elijah Badger. Yeah.
One, or Elijah. Sorry, Elijah Badger. Whatever.
It's after midnight, guys. Hang with us.
We're hard, But yeah, Elijah Badger, I would say, is the air quotes number 1, the X, the guy that's stretching the thing down the field. And he was the top receiver in the opener at home against the Aviators, right? Yeah. 2 weeks ago. What was it? Had 132 yards, including an 84-yarder. Which,
the steak dinner. We're just calling that the DoorDash delivery at this point.
Yeah, at this point. No offense to Chris Rowland, who would eventually, make up for committing the penalty that called it back by scoring. But yeah, I would say the contest, because I think Badger's the X, right? The number 1. Who you would call the number 2 guy, I don't know. Hamler made a heck of a case tonight. And KG's a good returner as well. And I think Chris is a good returner as well as a number 2 option. But I think it's a matter, who's number 1 or 2 or even 3 on a particular night depends on the opponent. And when you're in a world where Plummer may not have the time and Jack might need to dump it off quickly. See, I did that just to mock you. No, but and he may need to dump it off quickly. And need a gadget guy. What was it? The call when he got the touchdown was the Swiss Army knife slashes through to get the touchdown or whatever it was that Menefee said. Some nights it's going to be Chris Rowland. Some nights it's going to be KJ Hamler. Sometimes it's going to be both. So,
well, I think it's got to be one of them damn 3 tight ends. I mean,
yeah, exactly.
See that's the other thing, and we haven't really seen a lot of tight end play from the receiving aspect.
They've
have
been
been out
big
there
moments, but they're not prolific.
Yeah.
I'll agree.
Yeah,
with
they haven't had a whole lot of offensive, plays where they're the ones catching something over the middle, slipping through secondaries that are all of a sudden all everywhere else, but where the tight end is. So they haven't really. And again, this goes back to what you were saying about schematic things.
Right.
I don't think that's quite by design. They are effective blocking tight ends, and I think loading up on those bigger sets, does aid the run game. But these guys are kind of long for tight ends. They got receiver bodies,
Right.
And I think one of those guys has got to have a breakout game this season to kind of help with some of that. And I wonder if they're going to delve into this a little bit because, they haven't cut any of them yet. So they're keeping them all on the roster and they're dressing all. Yeah. So I think it would be worth it to this point to, you've got your big 3 on the edge, now who's going to line up at tight end and make those plays to be that 4th or 5th receiver in the formation that's going to make an impact. You could say Corbin, you could maybe line him up in a slot too. But I would much prefer to see him running between tackles instead of being a receiver outlet at this point. Unless
he's a good wheel runner, though. I like.
Yeah, he can run on the wheel and run the flats. He's a great ultimate check down. But I think in certain setups, one of the tight ends is going to have to step up and make some plays, from the slot or from their end position at this point, and make a difference and be a threat. Because again, that's going to take further pressure off of, the wideouts because Badger may be covered, but now you've got a Rowland to throw to. You can throw to Hamler or you can throw to one of the tight ends at this point. Now everything up the middle from the line of scrimmage up to about 15 yards is now a problem. So that's going to create big holes in those zones. And then the skill players can cook, or it'll be one of those things where, maybe a safety comes off his coverage or, Badger beats a corner. And next thing you know, he's dropping dimes and dancing into the end zone, waiting to take a swig from the beer snake. Who knows? At this point, he may run into the storm wall and a tornado will erupt. We won't know that until we see it. But yeah, the big for me is the addition of those tight ends at receiver and making sure that they are starting to make a bigger impact beyond blocking, which is critical. And speaking of blocking, none of these receivers are afraid of that, and that's heads up. So that's another thing I think is sort of we've not really touched on it and it's not really highlighted as much.
We mentioned it certainly last week, BP, when we were there on the field doing post game at Inter & Co Stadium.
That's true.
About the fact that the whole reason they got to 19 and some element was Hamlin making that run based off of Badger and Rowland throwing blocks downfield. And I mentioned it to Jeff Sharon, who he and I were both members of the Black and Gold Banneret, comparing it to what UCF does. No block, no rock is certainly something. Yep. I don't know that they use that mantra in practice, but they certainly wouldn't be uncomfortable doing
whatever the Anthony Becht equivalent is at this point. I'm sure of it. So very much, they're all hands on deck in the blocking game, and it's worth it. But and shout out to Michael Lance for making a couple of field goals, but we got to work on him 28-yarders now. That was
so strange to me. Like, I don't say this as a criticism, but it blows my mind that I need a scope from a sniper rifle to see the uprights for some of these things you hit, and then the short one was a down. I mean, but you know what? Yeah. I'm not going to claim. I'm not going to claim I could do it better. I like Lance as a kicker. I think this is something that could be gotten through. Yeah. And I think an element of it, honestly, is the first road game. That's what I think it is.
Yeah, well, first drive of the first road game,
right?
And for him to miss it, and
I mean, they're all road games, as Jack reminds us.
Yeah,
in the availability.
Jack says that, but when it's
when the crowd isn't yours,
when the crowd is not yours, and the everything about the experience is road. Of course they're always traveling from the hub. They really are road games in that sense, but there's no place like your turf. Right. And, there's something to be said about home field advantage. Nobody in the UFL clearly has a big one yet, unless maybe you're St. Louis or DC. Orlando's making a steady case
But
for it,
the
though.
eyeball ain't bad, man.
They're making a case for it now. And this is the part where once again, we make that call to action, brought yourself. We need everybody in the stands in Interco on the 25th, because as it's standing right now, your Orlando Storm has a really good shot of coming back undefeated. If they play really well in Birmingham and they squeak out a win, hopefully not on a technicality this time,
Yeah.
You could have an undefeated team in Orlando for the first time in a hot minute. So that's something to cheer about, and a reason why everybody needs to be in there, because St. Louis is going to give everybody their best shot in the Dome. Mm-hmm. So we need to answer an Inter & Co. and make it loud and obnoxious, for what could possibly be an undefeated Storm team coming off, a really big win against Birmingham and, gritty wins against Louisville 2 games in a row. So there it is, folks. I've said it. Bring yourself. And we hope to see you there. But, business to take care of in Birmingham. And we've mentioned it a couple of times. And if you got the promo, well, there it is. My man, next week, we're doing this live again, just like we did this week, except we will be on location at one of my favorite places to eat. We're sparing no expense, not really, but we're also sharing the love with our neighbors from the Jacksonville Jaguars. We're going to be up in Duval on the shores of the St. Johns at one of my favorite places to eat, Fast Eddie's Quick Mid East on Bay Meadows Road, just off I-295. Rock and roll and grilled meats and all sorts of hilarity will ensue. And Kyle and I will again do live at the half and again for post game. We're going to be there enjoying the game from start to finish, enjoying some great food and hanging out with some really cool people. If you happen to be
looking forward to meet people that take care of BP, I think that's going to be fun, man.
Yeah, and if you happen to be in the Jacksonville area, this is not an officially sanctioned watch party by any stretch of the imagination. But if you happen to be in the Jacksonville area for whatever reason, because you would otherwise be at a Storm game, but since you're free that weekend and you'd be in front of a television watching a game and you happen to be in Jacksonville, come on down and hang out with us, say hello. Otherwise, we're going to be spreading the love of spring football to our friends in Jacks, getting them fired up about the Orlando Storm. Because 2027 they're going to be neighbors, and we're going to have football in Central Florida in particular for the better part of like 11 months. So we need everybody on board with this year round now. And it's just a really cool place to hang out and eat. They're super supportive of my work in the media, and we were super supportive of them. A great locally owned business that you need to check out when you're in Jacksonville. And maybe if you're down there in Orlando, there might be a similar place in City Beautiful or parts around that we could do that too. And you can hit us up on social media. And maybe if you see what we do at Fast Eddie's and think it's fun, maybe I'll come down to Orlando and do it at your house too. And we'll have another Storm Surge live on location. So
there you go.
Who
if
knows?
they cover your meal, that'll balance the gas prices a little bit, perhaps.
Yeah, I know they were watching this game at Ivanhoe tonight. So I'm pretty sure there might have been a couple of beers tossed at some point, in frustration, like, why are we going to overtime? But I would love to see how that watch party went out. That might be a side quest that we do there. Just go to Ivanhoe and check it out. Watch party in one of the road games. That might be a way to close out the regular season for DC, is to go watch a game there. I know some colleagues of ours want to go witness the beer snake in person, but if by chance, we'll go to a watch party instead.
But if there's some way I can triangulate you and well, I won't give away who it is, but you and that all happening. Let's just say life be life, and there's some logistics with that. But let me pull in one last question here before we wrap up. BP Bubby asks, what teams are you hoping become a big rival for Orlando, or could you see becoming a rival? Listen, I don't think this is particularly close right now. It certainly has to be the Battlehawks, although the Stallions will probably be on the list because they're in the same conference or division, whatever you want to have it. They're both East teams, right? With the Stallions, but Beck's former team has to be Beck versus Battlehawks is the storyline when they come back here for week 4 on the 25th.
I think it's a cool story, bro, but I don't know, man. You might want to circle Louisville. next time around.
Oh, well, hey, you know what? For next season, you damn skippy. You're
I think
right.
yeah,
I know
think
Chris
next year.
Redmond's unhappy. Maybe he bears no ill will directly to Anthony Beck, but he's going to be pissed that he lost this game. Jason Bean threw up 300 yards only to lose a technicality tends to make one a little unhappy. You got a good point.
Well, yeah, and I saw Beck and Redmond say to each other, well, them's the rules. And they kind of had that handshake that says, damn, I really wish this game didn't have to finish this way, but that's what they do. Otherwise we're going to be here till next week playing overtime scrimmage. So, I'd see that being the case. And I know. And like I said, all credit to Louisville. Hey, Kings fans, I would not hang your head on this game at all. I would definitely hope you guys rip off some victories, down the stretch. I think you've got the team to do it now. And I think you've got the quarterback to do it. Take that and run with it, and maybe we'll see you in the semifinals. If not, we definitely will see Louisville making a statement throughout the season into next year. And yeah, I would definitely circle that game. Storm Kings, definitely a tough one. But yeah, you're right with the Battlehawks. That's the storyline. That's. I think we'll get a better indication of that when Orlando plays them in the Dome. I don't think at Inter & Co. you're going to see it so much because many of the Orlando fans and the people that are watching the games are newer to it. But yeah, when you see the game in St. Louis and you hear the Storm come out, all of those boos are not going to be necessarily for the team. They're going to be for the head coach, even though he didn't have anything to do with it per se,
right?
They're just doing it because, they were a loyal fan base.
Well, and as UFL fans go, Hawks fans travel, and an excuse to go to Disney and boo Coach Beck. I mean, I'm not ruling it out. Right?
We'll find out. We might make some unwitting friends I say frenemies if that's the case, because we'll have to go over and visit the Battlehawks fan section and give a curt wave. We did see some Aviators fans.
We did.
That first game. There was a family of 4 in Columbus gear that showed up. So you never know who's going to be at these games, really.
So there you go. There you have it. So. There's our take on future rivalry. That's our take on our first live post game, our first evening of live stuff. A lot of fun, BP. Thanks for people jumping in the comments. That's always fun. We're going to keep doing it if you keep coming back. And hey, tell your friends. Storm Surge Podcast on the YouTube and also on Spotify and Apple Podcast. We're going to expand that more. Kyle just hasn't had time to mess with the RSS feed. But yeah, and all exactly. All the rest that's to come. Make sure at Storm Surge ORL for all the socials and all the things. And BP, tell them where you can be found, my friend.
Right there on your screen at bp.onair. Find me on the Instagram. That's where I spend most of my time. And I do help out with our Instagram, so you're likely to get me first if Kyle hasn't intercepted it on the gram. You can also find the Wubbulous world of my work on bponair.com, where I also give you a YouTube link. So if you forget anything about YouTube or just where's that podcast I found, you can always go to my website. We'll have our most recent episodes on the front page there for you, so you can click and go. And it's a great time to be a Storm fan right now. Final score 29-27. Absolutely love it. Kyle, where are you?
Yes, it's nice to see Stormtroopers hitting the target for once. Of course, I'm Kyle Nash, the Steer of the Game. You can find me on Twitter, Instagram, Threads, and Blue Sky at the SOTG. Find me on Facebook as the Student of the Game. Check out my work covering UCF spring football and basketball, because that's where I'm going to be right before I drive up to Jacksonville on the 18th with the Locked On UCF podcast and UCF Night Zone, where that work will be appearing very shortly. Shouts to Mikey G for letting me get involved with that. Of course, my work on the Duval Dive. That's right. I'm going to Jacksonville. It won't be for the Jags then, but for every other time, I'll be talking to Travis D. Holmes, my co-host, about the Jacksonville Jaguars. Make sure you check that out. Duval Dive YouTube channel and such. Also, my work covering the Orlando Magic playoffs.
They beat the Chicago Bulls tonight. Oh, by the way, they won another game. So,
if they can get some help where other people lose some games, maybe they will dodge the play-in. That would be a fantastic.
They need the Hawks or the Raptors to lose at this point if they need to get out and get in that 6th seed. We'll see, man. I want the Magic out of the play-in for sure. But, hey, I'm glad they're postseason bound anyway.
So, yeah, with all that in mind, for BP, for you guys in the comments, for the Stormtroopers, this is Kyle Nash, the Student of the Game. Until next time, everyone, class Dismiss.
Fight back. Yeah. Fight back.